This is Bill, and I've received several requests to kind of lay out what's on my back wall here. And so I've promised a few people that I would eventually get around to doing that. I guess I'll show you first what it takes to record this podcast with my equipment here. Okay, first the podcast setup. Y'all can probably tell that as we're doing the podcast, I'm staring at a heads-up display so I could see. I put Seth's, the monitor, Seth's image on Zoom, or we sometimes use Ecamm Live, which is a Mac-based application. I put it in the monitor there, so I'm staring at him, and might have notes there, and of course I control the whole setup with monitor there. We've got the audio mixer, and I use a Mac Mini that's mounted underneath this very messy desk. And of course it takes a lot of lighting to get this lighting setup right. I have the front lights, and I have to light the back wall, otherwise it's completely dark. So I got two big lights there for the back wall, and that's essentially how we do the actual recording. This, of course, is the wall that folks are asking about that sits behind me. Maybe before I start that, I'm going to show you over here. I'm not a guitar player, but this was given to me by the World War II USS Indianapolis survivors. And you'll see it's signed by Kix Brooks and Ronnie Dunn, Brooks and Dunn, but it's also signed by many of the USS Indianapolis, that's the World War II cruiser Indianapolis survivors. And it was given to me, for I guess my contribution to their effort to exonerate their captain. And it's one of my treasures. There's only one of them still alive, as I've said before, of the Indianapolis survivors. And it's funny that Brooks and Dunn had been fans of the story of the World War II cruiser, so they donated the guitar to the survivors, and the survivors signed it and then donated it to me. This document here is a quote, Conrad. It was given to me when I became captain of the submarine USS Indianapolis, and it's a quote about the responsibilities of command at sea. And every submarine CO would get this when he was, when he was given, basically when he was about to take command of his submarine. Back then it was all men, of course. That's my Commodore Submarine Squadron 3 flag. This is a flag given to me by the crews of my 6 submarines when I was Commodore. Of course, it shows the Hawaiian operating area, or the Hawaiian Islands, Sandwich Islands, from the Captain Cook days, and kind of a reproduction of a historic map of the Hawaiian Islands, which is, of course, where we were based out of. This one here is one of my great treasures. When I left on my final deployment as CO of USS Indianapolis, and then later we inactivated. But this photograph was taken of my 2 children then. Now, of course, they're adults in their 30s, but they were waving goodbye to me and my ship as we left on our final deployment. And then we used that photograph for the program when President Clinton decided to inactivate my perfectly good submarine halfway through its life in 1998. So sad, but has that saying from Walt Whitman that I really treasure. Oh Captain, our fearful trip is done. Our ship has weathered every storm. The prize we sought is won. And so that's the front cover and the back cover of the inactivation ceremony in 1998 after we came back from our final deployment. Up there is a Navy unit commendation that my submarine earned while I was captain of it. That's a big deal. And for those who don't know, I can't tell you why it was awarded to us. It's one of those submarine things that we can't talk about. This was given to me, and of course, the National Ensign on that side, and it's got a photograph of my chief petty officers, and I'm sorry, this is the commissioning pennant, my goodness. We flew the checker flag as our ship's flag because we were USS Indianapolis and the Indy 500 and all of that. And so every time we get underway, of course, we're flying the ensign, and below the ensign we would fly the checkered flag, and of course the commissioning pennant. Everybody, you should look that up if you don't know what it is. And when I was Commodore, when I finished my tour as Commodore, my staff gave me this, graphic of some of the most famous submarine from World War II battle flags, and of course, as you can see around the border, they all signed it. That's my book that I wrote. This was presented to me when I retired, actually from my civilian job, believe it or not. The crew knew that I was, my team in my civilian job at L3 Technologies knew, of course, my submarine background. Is very kind of them to present that to me. And these clearer things are some of the awards I received in my civilian jobs. Very kind. Picture of me in Iraq. This is part of this actually is melted down from torpedo tubes on my submarine. And this is wood from the battery well of my submarine after it was decommissioned. And you all have seen this painting. It was also presented to me. It's actually incorrectly portrays my submarine because Indianapolis had sailplanes, which that's called an improved Los Angeles class submarine. And we didn't have vertical launch system tubes. When we shot Tomahawk missiles, we would have to shoot them out of the torpedo tubes. But, it's one of those things where I'm not going to complain. So and that was a gift to me from some of the families. The USS Indianapolis thing, sign there, USS Indianapolis Street, was a gift to me from some of the families of survivors of the World War II cruiser. That's a photograph of me on my sail. That was a gift to me from one of my Hollywood director friends named David Ayer, a little cutout that actually does portray my submarine accurately, along with our ship's coin. This actually is from World War II, Submarine Squadron 3, which I was Commodore of in the 2003-2004 timeframe. My predecessor at the end of World War II was Captain Glenn Donahoe, who was the Commodore then, and the submarines in his squadron. Ironically, and this is one of those incredible coincidences, things you can't make up, is Glenn Donahoe was called to testify in Captain McVeigh's court-martial as an American submarine skipper from World War II, who said that the Indianapolis would have been sunk whether or not it had been zigzagging. And again, one of these things you can't make up. What are the odds that he was there in 1945, that in 2003 I would take command of the very same submarine squadron? You can't make this stuff up. That is a painting depicting the moment two torpedoes struck the cruiser Indianapolis, and of course that's the explosion of one of the ship's magazines that was reported by the crew. Actually, what probably happened rather than a magazine explosion was a gasoline explosion from aviation gas for the ship's airplanes. That's an overhead photograph of, obviously, of the shipyard here and Ford Island. The house where I lived when I was Commodore is right over here, the bridge here, and the submarine base. This is one of my most prized possessions because you will see there's an actual signature autograph of Admiral Nimitz and his flag lieutenant, actually Commander Eugene Fluckey. Yes, indeed. This photograph was signed by both Admiral Nimitz and Gene Fluckey. A lot of people are asking about this. That is a replica of a Hawaiian war weapon. Yes, those are indeed shark's teeth. It was given to me when I was vice president of Hewlett Packard, and I had a great team working out of Hawaii operating Navy networks out of Hawaii. And there is a John Paul Jones quote, which you all know very well. It happened to be my submarine's motto. I wish to have no connection with any ship that does not sail fast, for I intend to go in harm's way. And that was the motto of my submarine, Indianapolis. And a George Washington quote. I'll let you read right there. So a lot of great things here that are great treasures. I'm very proud of. If I walk over here at the National Museum of the Pacific War in Fredericksburg, Texas, there are a bunch of plaques. That one is a plaque of Captain McVeigh of the cruiser USS Indianapolis, and some patrons of mine were kind enough to have a plaque of me mounted at the National Museum of the Pacific War as well, which is another great honor of mine. This is a photograph that was taken when we returned from our very final deployment on my submarine. You can see my submarine in the background here, and me, and somebody had the idea of releasing some doves. I'm not sure. That's a wonderful gesture, a kind of an unusual gesture for a warship, but I wasn't complaining. And that's, my officers signed this for me at the time that we all disbanded as a crew after the ship was decommissioned. This is my graduation diploma from Annapolis, along with my commission, which was signed by Graham Claytor. And if you know your history, Graham Claytor was the CEO of one of the destroyers, the destroyer escort, that came to the rescue of the World War II cruiser survivors after they spent 3 to 5 days in the water. And again, you can't make this stuff up, right? So Graham Claytor was a lieutenant commander, CEO of one of the destroyer escorts that came to rescue the World War II cruiser survivors, and he was Secretary of the Navy. It signed my commissioning certificate when I graduated from Annapolis. I don't know what to say about this stuff, but it's all true. You can't make it up. That's a brigade of midshipmen thing. It's Army Navy game kind of stuff. Here we have travels me and my wife have done. This is me scuba diving in a neutral buoyancy lab. One of my contracts in my civilian life was astronaut training contract, and I had the great privilege of certifying to become a rescue diver in the neutral buoyancy lab. You can see astronauts training there for an EVA on space station. That's me and my friend, SEAL Captain Bob Harward, later Vice Admiral Bob Harward. And we're in Iraq, Baghdad, Iraq, when we took this picture. That's me and General Colin Powell. I worked for him as a lieutenant commander, and I received great honor, received the Action Officer of the Year award in 1992, and so that's him presenting that certificate to me. This is also in Iraq, Baghdad. These are some boys that couldn't help but photograph in Iraq. After the 2003 invasion of Iraq, they thought that they were going to be Americans. We pulled over and talked to them for a while, and they were extremely happy. This was maybe a month into the invasion. I was there and took that picture. So that's kind of that.